In the ancient world, empires clashed for power across the Mediterranean, and none were more bitter enemies than Rome and Carthage. Carthage, the great North African city of merchants and sailors, had once ruled the seas. But after the First Punic War, Carthage lay humbled, its navy shattered, its land stripped, its pride wounded. Yet from that defeat would rise a man whose very name would strike terror into the heart of Rome. His name was Hannibal Barca. Hannibal was born in 247 BC, as Carthage was still licking its wounds from Rome's first great victory. His father, Hannibal Barca, was a general who had fought fiercely against Rome and hated them with every fiber of his being. When Hannibal was just a boy, his father took him by the hand, led him to an altar, and made him swear a solemn oath that he would never be a friend to Rome. That oath would shape the destiny of Hannibal's life and alter the course of history. As Hannibal grew, he proved himself a natural leader, intelligent, charismatic, and fearless. He joined his father in Spain, where Carthage had built new colonies after its defeat. When Hamilcar died, Hannibal rose through the ranks, eventually taking command of the Carthaginian forces in Iberia. His soldiers loved him, for unlike many generals, he shared their hardships, ate their food, and marched alongside them. He was not just their commander, he was their brother in arms. But Hannibal never forgot his oath. His eyes were always on Rome. He knew that Carthage could not defeat the Roman Republic by fighting passively. Rome was too relentless, too resourceful. To defeat them, he would have to strike at their very heart. And so, in 218 BC, Hannibal began one of the most daring campaigns in history. He assembled an army of nearly 50,000 men, thousands of cavalry, and a force that would astonish the world, dozens of mighty war elephants. His plan was to march from Spain, through Gaul, across the towering Alps, and into Italy itself. No one believed such a thing was possible. The Alps were a wall of ice and rock, filled with hostile tribes, deadly avalanches, and freezing winds. To bring an army across them was madness. To bring elephants? Unthinkable. But Hannibal was not a man of ordinary vision. The march was brutal. From the moment they entered the Alps, Hannibal's army faced endless hardship. Narrow mountain passes forced them into single-file columns, while rocks tumbled from cliffs above. Snow blinded the soldiers, frostbite gnawed at their skin, and men slipped to their deaths in icy ravines. Horses collapsed, wagons shattered, supplies dwindled. Yet Hannibal pressed on, riding at the front, urging his men forward with fiery speeches. "We will either find a way," he told them, "or we will make one." The elephants, too, struggled. Accustomed to the warm plains of Africa, they shivered in the snow, their massive feet sliding on ice. Some perished on the cliffs, tumbling into the abyss. But their presence inspired the army. To the men, the elephants were a symbol of strength, living proof that nothing was impossible under Hannibal's command. Day after day, the army pushed forward. At times they fought not just the elements, but the mountain tribes who attacked their columns. Arrows rained down, rocks tumbled, but Hannibal countered with ambushes of his own, using terrain and cunning to outwit his enemies even in the mountains. After more than 2 weeks of suffering, the survivors finally descended into the fertile plains of Italy. Though Hannibal had lost nearly half his force, those who remained were hardened by fire and ice. Rome had never expected him to succeed. And yet, there he stood, Hannibal Barca, with his elephants and his army, ready to bring war to the gates of Rome itself. The Romans were stunned. Never before had a foreign general invaded Italy in such a fashion. At Trebia, Hannibal struck his first blow. He lured the Roman legions into a trap, feigned retreat, and then unleashed his cavalry and hidden forces upon them. The Romans were crushed, their pride wounded, their legions humiliated. But Hannibal was only beginning. At Lake Trasimene, Hannibal executed one of the greatest ambushes in history. Concealed in the misty hills, his army descended upon the marching Roman column, driving them into the lake itself. Thousands drowned or were cut down, and Rome's soldiers realized they faced not just a warrior, but a genius of war. Panic spread through the Republic. Mothers whispered to their children, "Hannibal is at the gates." But Hannibal's masterpiece came in 216 BC at the Battle of Cannae. Facing a Roman army nearly twice his size, Hannibal employed a tactic that would echo through the ages: the double envelopment. He placed his weaker troops in the center, drawing the Romans in, while his strong wings of cavalry and infantry closed around them. The Romans were encircled, trapped, and annihilated. It was one of the worst defeats Rome had ever suffered. 50,000 Romans fell in a single day. The battlefield was choked with bodies, the Tiber River ran red with blood, and Rome itself trembled on the brink of destruction. In the aftermath, many believed Hannibal would march on Rome itself and finish the war. The city lay vulnerable, its legions shattered. But Hannibal did not attack. Without reinforcement from Carthage, he lacked the siege equipment and manpower to storm the great city. Year after year, he remained in Italy, winning battles, ravaging the countryside, but never delivering the final blow. Rome, desperate to survive, turned to a new strategy. Under the guidance of Fabius Maximus, known as the Delayer, Rome refused to meet Hannibal in open battle. Instead, they shadowed his army, cut off his supplies, and wore him down with time. Hannibal, though undefeated in the field, could not break Rome's will. His men grew weary, his elephants died, and his dream of destroying Rome slipped further from reach. For more than 15 years, Hannibal fought in Italy, a shadow of terror over the Republic. Yet Rome endured. Slowly, patiently, Rome rebuilt, striking back in Spain, seizing Carthage's colonies, and cutting off Hannibal's support. Then, under the brilliant young general Scipio Africanus, Rome carried the war to North Africa itself. Carthage, now threatened at home, recalled Hannibal from Italy. In 202 BC, Hannibal and Scipio met on the plains of Zama in North Africa. It was the final clash of the Second Punic War, the showdown between two of history's greatest generals. Hannibal commanded a mighty force, but Scipio had studied his tactics and adapted. The elephants, Hannibal's fearsome beasts, were turned aside by clever Roman maneuvers. The Roman legions, disciplined and hardened, stood firm against his charges. At last, Hannibal tasted what he had never known before in Italy: defeat. Carthage was forced to surrender, and Rome emerged as the master of the Mediterranean. Hannibal's dream of destroying Rome was lost, but his story did not end there. In the years that followed, he entered politics in Carthage, fighting corruption, strengthening the city. But Rome never forgot him. They demanded his exile, hunted him across the lands. Hannibal wandered from court to court, serving foreign kings, still feared and respected as the greatest enemy Rome had ever faced. In the end, when Roman agents closed in, he chose to take poison rather than fall into their hands. His final words are said to have been, "Let us relieve the Romans from the anxiety they have so long endured, since they think it tries their patience too much to wait for an old man's death." And so Hannibal died in exile, far from his beloved Carthage, but undefeated in spirit. His life was a testament to brilliance, courage, and relentless determination. Even Rome, his mortal enemy, could not help but admire him. Centuries later, Roman generals would study his campaigns, and even today, his tactics at Cannae are taught in military academies around the world. Hannibal Barca, the general who brought elephants over the Alps, remains one of the greatest commanders in the history of war. He defied an empire, shook the foundations of Rome, and became a legend whose name has never been forgotten. His story is one of vision, of daring, of impossible feats achieved by sheer will. Though he never destroyed Rome, he carved his name into eternity. And when history remembers the warriors and leaders who changed the world, Hannibal stands among them, the man who made Rome tremble.